I always get asked why I don't use my AccuQuilt more often. Normally, I just say because the dies cost a lot, which is true, but I also felt like it always left me with a lot of fabric waste. And I'm not scared of fabric waste. I trim down flying geese and half square triangles a lot, and there's fabric waste there. It's something that I understand just goes along with quilting, honestly. But I decided to do a little test and see if it was even faster to cut with my AccuQuilt than with my Slidelock and a rotary cutter. So today I'm going to show you the results. And before I even jump in and show you how fast it was to cut with my Slidelock and rotary cutter versus the AccuQuilt, I just want to show you the fabric waste between them both because I was actually shocked because I never did a comparison before. So here is all of my fabric waste, and some of it's falling out of my hands from cutting the 3.5-inch squares from a yard of fabric with the AccuQuilt. And this is the waste from cutting the 3.5 squares from a yard of fabric with my rotary cutter. So already a huge difference. All right, so let's get to cutting with them both. I timed it so that you can see and watch along with the timer and see how long it took with each one. All right, so first I'm going to cut 3.5-inch squares from a yard of fabric, and I'm going to cut 3.5-inch squares with my Slidelock, a ruler, and a rotary cutter first, and then I'm going to cut 3.5-inch squares from a yard of fabric from my AccuQuilt as well. So with both methods, I'm going to first cut some strips from my fabric. With the Slidelock and rotary cutter, I'm going to cut the strips, then subcut them down into the squares. And then with the AccuQuilt, I'm going to cut the 3.5-inch squares by first cutting strips and then fan folding it onto my 3.5-inch die. All right, so there you go. That is why I typically just cut my fabric on my own. I actually got a lot more squares from the Art of Fabric using just my rotary cutter and ruler versus the AccuQuilt as well, a lot more. And another thing with the AccuQuilt I do want to point out is that there's not a lot of stress or any at all on your hand using the AccuQuilt. So I do recognize that as I age and get older, I may have to rely on that a lot more. That is why I'm keeping it, and why sometimes I do buy some dies as well when I see them on sale, because I know at some point I'm probably not going to be able to cut as often or for as long of a period of time. So the AccuQuilt does come in very handy with that as well. So please don't think that I don't think it's a good product. I do. It cuts very, very well. These are amazing squares, but I don't honestly think it's faster than cutting with a ruler. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.